Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 50 Shades of Tay. I'm Taylor Gonzalez, and you guys, today is a very exciting day because I have an avatar here. It's not every day you get to talk with an avatar face to face. Jen Varney, the voice of Korra, is here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. This is very exciting. I have something completely random to ask you that was not part of the plan at all, but one of my
Okay.
favorite podcasts is Stuff You Should Know. And the other
Yeah.
day I was listening, I think it was the episode about streaming music, and they name dropped you. How do you know Josh and Chuck?
Oh my gosh. I know them because I was a huge fan of the podcast and by the way, someone else told me that they name dropped me and I was like, I had no idea that they had, so I have to listen because I'm behind. But yeah, I loved Stuff You Should Know years and years ago. And I mean like maybe a decade now, which seems insane. But and one day Chuck mentioned that he was hanging out with like John Hodgman and went to like Max FunCon. And I think I did a spit take on whatever it was. I was like, oh wait, hold on. Like I had to like do the math. I was like, okay, I he might know who I am. Like Chuck might know. I don't know about Josh, but like Chuck definitely knows some people I know. And so I wrote him and just was like, maybe this is stupid, but like I love you and maybe you know who I am. And he wrote back and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm totally a fan also." And so we became friends and we've been like very close ever since. And he's wonderful. So we always bring him up to do Sketch Fest, which is a comedy festival I do in San Francisco. And he was just in town in LA, and he did like a really cool screening as part of like this podcasters and film festival. And I got COVID and then proceeded to give my partner COVID, and so no one left the house that
Uh-oh.
the entire time he was in
Oh
town.
my God.
Uh,
Well, that's awesome. Such a cool connection because yeah,
yeah.
I wasn't even planning on it. And then it was literally like last week and they name dropped you and I was like, oh, what a coincidence.
That is so funny. I have to tell you, it gives me a huge thrill whenever Chuck has name dropped me. I've been like, I mean, I feel like the president of the United States is name dropping me.
It's such a good podcast for everyone
It's
out there who hasn't listened to
great.
Stuff You Should Know. Check them out because it's one of my favorites.
It's so good and it's been around forever. Like it's definitely one of the OG podcasts. And you see so many podcasts that have come since then that are sort of using that formula. And some of those are wonderful too. But this is definitely like, it's like, oh, this gave people the idea to do podcasts in many, in many cases.
No, totally,
That's
totally agree.
awesome. Well, we have that fandom in common for
Yeah,
sure.
awesome. Well, back to Korra. One
Sure.
of my favorite shows. I love The Legend of Korra so much. How did you get cast as Korra?
Oh my gosh, total audition situation. I had not even really done that much voiceover. I was mostly and continued to be mostly on camera as an actor, but I definitely had such a like just love of animation and just in general. I think the basic concept of like getting to do a voice, but it's not you. You don't have to see yourself. You're playing a character that's so far in many cases outside. You might be playing a bug, you might be playing, a monster. And that's magic to me. Like definitely a kid, in that way. And so I had just been working down here for, maybe a couple of years at most. And I knew that my commercial agent also had this mysterious voiceover department where I would see people like going in to record who knows what. And at some point, I just kind of, sat down with them and I was like, what do I have to do to go in there? Like, what's that about? And so they had me do a little bit of like, taking some coaching classes just so I could get more comfortable kind of on mic and get the basics. Because it's true that, Dante and I always joke that we've done so much on camera stuff that when it's time for us to punch, we like flail and like hit our microphones and stuff. So someone has to be like, calm down, voiceover is different. And so, yeah, I got an audition for it. Nickelodeon has always been so amazing about pulling from the comedy community. So, I think that Sarah Noonan, who was the casting director at Nickelodeon at the time, I think she had seen me in comedy stuff and was like, yeah, I'll start. I like as soon as they started submitting me, I think she was like, sure, we'll bring Janet in. And so when I got this audition, again, I hadn't done a ton of auditioning in voiceover and I hadn't done a ton of work in voiceover. So I just assumed it was going to be this very goofy, silly, SpongeBob-y kind of, which is also great, but like I thought it would be like comedy related. And so when I auditioned for it, I was like, wait, this is like good. This is Avatar. Like, oh my gosh, because I love the first series. And yeah, I mean, it was just a series of auditions with enough space in between each audition, like each callback, that I was like, I'm positive. I mean, who am I? Like, there are so many people who could get this role who would be great. I'm brand new at this particular part of the business. And yeah, and it just, they kept bringing me back. And we did like a chemistry read with Faustino and me and PJ, and again I felt like a bunch of time passed, so I was like, nope, did not happen. And then I got the call and I just could not believe it. I still can't believe it.
That is so awesome. And honestly, I can't imagine anyone else voicing her. So I know how
That's so
you must have felt
lovely.
back then, but I'm telling you now, like looking back on it and everything, perfect, perfect casting. And
Oh,
it's crazy too. I
thank
was looking
you.
through just like the IMDb of people who like guest voiced characters on
Oh,
there. You
it's
worked with so
crazy.
many people. Does it ever like blow your mind to sit back and think like all the A-listers that had characters throughout the series?
Yes, it blows my mind every day. It blew my mind as it was happening. I've told this story before, but one of my favorite instances was I was pulling into Nickelodeon, parked my car, and this person pulled up in their car and parked next to me. And we both kind of like awkwardly, I mean, it just like happens timing wise. Like we both pulled in, we both got out of a car at the same time. It was like looking in a mirror. But the person who stood up outside of their driver's side was Lisa Edelstein from House. And I was a huge House fan and I love her. And I've seen her in other stuff. And she was on Ally McBeal back in the day. And so I was like, immediately starstruck and was like, and she just gave me a big smile. And, we both started walking towards Nickelodeon and went inside. And then like kept going in the same direction. And then I was like, I wonder where she's going. Kept going in the same direction. And then there she was walking into our table read. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like she's coming to, I mean, I didn't really think of it as my show, but I definitely was like, this is like, I'm legit in this circumstance. Like, I'm not just running to her in a cafe where I would want to be like, I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm a huge fan. And so that was a perfect example of like, it never occurred to me that she would be in the same room as me doing anything because I love her. And that is true of so many people. Like walking into the room before table read and Mike and Brian being like, oh, Janet, this is Clancy. And me being like, hi, yeah, hi. And yeah, all of it, like season through season, like I got to know Zelda, which is amazing. I love her. It's been so amazing seeing where she's taking her career. Anne Heche, RIP, totally surreal to get to work with her. I mean, there were just so many, and then there were also friends that I already knew, like Maria Bamford and John Michael Higgins and folks like that, who are also, and Mindy Sterling, who are in the comedy world, and that was like a dream come true. And then the fact that they had us record together, which is so special, and I wish more people did it. I know it's like so hard with scheduling and an expense and stuff, but it's just a heavenly experience. And I do think you get better work out of it because people get to really live in those places and those roles and those scenes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's crazy how many people I interview, and I'm like, "What was it like getting to work with so and so?" And they're like, "We haven't met yet." And I'm like, "Oh
Totally.
no!"
Yeah,
Ugh,
that was
which
Wonder
is
Woman. When I did Injustice, people were, because that's also like a huge list of like amazing actors, and they were like, "Huh? How was?" And like, I wish. I mean, that was during COVID, so it was extra isolated. It was like no part, like no premiere, no nothing. Everything was like just buttoned down. I'm like, I don't know. I wish I would have met everyone.
You know what movie did it perfectly lately? I think it was also Nickelodeon, was the new Ninja Turtles movie. I'm not sure if you've
Oh
seen it,
yeah,
the animated one. And it was
yeah,
the group of kids, and they showed some behind the scenes stuff of the four of them just in a booth. And you could tell when you watch that movie, just the riffing and just the
yes,
ad-libbing and I
yes.
want more movies like that.
I know, and the animation on that was so beautiful. So much stuff that's being made right now. I would say specifically, I'm thinking of Ninja Turtles, and then like all of the Spideyverse stuff
Yeah.
has just been so exciting to see because we kind of get to a place where we're like, okay, well we've seen animation, like we know what to expect,
Mm.
and the like going backwards and going forwards at the same time with this like kind of feeling of like nostalgia, but it's in this whole new package, I think is so exciting and just like brilliant.
You know what movie coming out soon looks incredible as far as animation style is The Wild Robot, the new
Oh,
Chris
yeah, and
Sanders
I've heard
DreamWorks.
it's great. Yeah, I've heard it's
Ah,
great.
it looks
Yeah, I can't
gorgeous.
wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't wait for that as well. So you voiced Korra for over 50 episodes. Do you have a favorite episode in mind?
Well, I would have to say Korra alone from season 4. And part of that is because, well, there's a few different reasons, not the least of which is that we actually ended up being able to screen that at the New York Comic Con before season 4 dropped. And it was like, thousands of people. And just hearing people's reaction, there were a lot of Korra Asami shippers there that day. And so when Korra, writes her letter to Asami, people were like screaming, and at that point no one knew that that's where it was going anyway. We knew, but they didn't know. So that was really exciting. And then Toph, it makes an appearance, and then also just everything that Korra was going through in terms of her PTS and her physical therapy, and all of that really resonated very deeply for me because I've definitely had like both emotional, mental, and physical traumas, and I know very, very, very well how much you start to question your own identity and your own value when there's stuff that you associate with yourself. And then if that gets taken away temporarily or permanently, going to that place of like, if I don't have this, then who even am I? And it's a very scary place to be. So, for that reason, and for getting to have the reaction of everybody watching it together, I can't top that one. It's just very special. And it's linked to Zuko alone and Suki alone and Azula alone. Like that's this kind of iconic piece that kind of keeps recurring in the Avatar verse.
Ah, very cool. Yeah, that must be such an excitement to be in a crowd, especially like Comic-Con, and be there when you see all the audience and all the people's reactions. That I can't even imagine what that feeling must be like. But you also got to reprise your role as Korra for several video games, including Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl and Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3. What is it like voicing Korra for a video game, and how is that different from voicing her for the series?
I mean, it's very different in the way that you would probably expect based on everything we just talked about, which is like this interaction with other actors and feeling like, you're telling a story. When you're doing a video game, you're telling a very different story. And in many cases, you are responsible for just a very long laundry list of moments, including all the punches. Everything happens all at once. Whereas, when we do fight sequences on the cartoon, we would come in and do ADR, which was, it's totally different because you're matching to the picture, and that makes it come alive in a totally different way. Whereas if you're doing a video game, so my friends who do video games, especially combat games, they're like heroes to me because there's a lot of screaming, yelling, grunting, and you have to really infuse your character and in the action of what's going on. But in many, and I would say in most cases, you're just reading off a list by yourself. And a great director, and luckily I've always had great directors, can kind of put you in the space. But I think it would be really easy just to be like, "Meh, meh, meh, meh,"
Mhm.
moving on. Meh, 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 meh. So yeah, it's a totally different experience. And for obvious reasons, I definitely prefer the moment with the entire cast where you're like, really letting a scene breathe.
Yeah. Speaking of video games, Korra was also added into Fortnite a couple seasons ago,
Yeah.
and I had so much fun playing as her. Did you get a chance to play it all?
I haven't played her yet, but I have seen so much footage and like done some like sort of watching through other people doing it. And they look amazing. Like all of the avatar building that
Mhm.
happened for Fortnite is and I think, well, if you watch Braving the Elements or if you listen to Braving the Elements, I don't want to give too much away, but it's possible that we might talk about this in the future. Um, but just have like the seriousness of like, we have to get this right. Like,
Mhm.
we don't want to do this if it's not going to be kind of perfect. And
Right.
so far, I have not spoken to a single person who has had any complaints about the rendering of
Mhm.
all of the bending and all of that kind of stuff. Like, they worked really, really hard to like honor that?
I miss the bending because they took it out when the season was over, when the event ended. But it was like so addicting to just run around and
Yes.
throw fire and water
Totally.
everywhere.
That's what
Uh,
we all
s-
want to do.
yeah, speaking of, if bending were real, and you could choose one element to bend, what would you want?
Water.
Yeah,
I
same.
can't separate it from the water tribe, who I love, 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 love. Um, I mean, I think like I don't know that that is because the argument can be made for sure about any of the elements being like the most key. Don't not trust myself with fire, so gonna have to put that away. I would say between earth and water, and then
Mm,
air. Again, I can't like separate myself from the fact that I would just be not unlike Korra, a very bad airbender to start. But water and earth, I've always felt like very drawn to. And when people make arguments like Earth is the best one, I'm like, oof, I'm hard pressed to argue with that because it's so powerful and so amazing. But it's got to be water. What about you?
definitely water.
Mm.
We don't need any more fire. We're both in LA right now where it's going to be 112 today. I'm going to Horror Nights at Universal Studios tonight.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
going to be like
Okay.
100 degrees at like
Oh, I
1 in the
know.
morning. So I
I
don't know.
know. We're so spoiled. We're so spoiled. On the East Coast, people are like, big deal. Yeah, it stays hot. Like it stays hot into the night. We're like, no, y'all. On the West Coast, we're used to it like cooling down
Yeah.
significantly,
Yeah.
even if it's going to be hot. And these past few days, it's just had that dry, like
Oh,
hot in the dark feeling is and the hot breeze.
yeah.
So my advice to you is I want you to go ahead and do one of those neck gaiters
Oh,
where you
yeah.
like put freezing cold water and just who cares if it's like dripping down your back? It's
Mhm.
either sweat or water that's gonna be dripping anyway. So just keep that going because that really cools your entire body down. I've had to do a lot of shoots in very hot weather and that has helped so much. And also just even having like ice water and being able to like put a little frozen bottle like on your pulse
Ooh,
points.
yeah.
You didn't know you were going to be getting this advice, but pulse point, pulse point, and then sometimes just if you do it like in the middle of your back, have someone like press something cold up to like the middle of your spine. It like creates this feeling of coolness through your whole body.
Oh, that's great. So tonight
Little
when I'm
water
being
bending for you.
yeah, chased by monsters at midnight,
I
I
know.
will make sure to hold on, stop chasing me. I gotta cool
Oh
down
my
for a second.
God.
Ridiculous.
I went to Knott's Scary Farm a few years ago, and I think because, and I don't know, maybe you're a performer also, but because I'm an actor, I get like kind of sheepish around actors who have been hired to do things. It's hard for me to like break out of that. And I also don't, I like being scared, but I don't love being jump scared. Um, and so I somehow my way of dealing with that became like these like incredibly scary clowns with like pointy teeth would come up to me like covered in goo and stuff. And I would be like, you don't look well. I'm worried about you. Stop screaming at me for a second. You need to see a dentist.
Oh my
So it
God.
was like, Janet, you're not, these poor actors.
That's
They're like,
hilarious.
just let me do my job, lady. Like, what are you doing?
I love it. I'm so looking forward to
Have
tonight,
fun
not looking
tonight.
forward to the heat.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could water bend, that would get me
Yeah.
out of this
Oh my
situation.
God. Absolutely. Oh, you could just drape yourself in a little ice sheath.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
wish.
We
So far we've had two live action adaptations of Avatar: The Last Airbender. There was the film, which
don't
we
talk
don't
about.
talk about, and then
Mhm.
I love the Netflix series. I think it's really
Yeah.
fun. The cast, I got to interview the cast for Haley Fest. I got to cover the red
Nice.
carpet. They didn't tell me till I got there that I was covering the red carpet,
Oh my
but they
God.
invited me to attend. And then I
Yeah.
got there and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna do interviews." And I was like, "All I have is my phone." So I did it
Oh,
like selfie style, interviewing
yeah.
people, but I mean, it worked. And the cast,
Yeah.
I think the chemistry between them is
Yes.
perfect. Um, number one, where is my live action Korra series or movie? And have you ever given any thought to who you would like to see cast as Korra if they were to do a live action adaptation?
Great question. Whew, that's tough. I think one of the amazing things about the live action is that, they did take a lot of time and care to cast folks who, could relate to the cultural history of, yes, it is made up in the sense that we all understand that this is, taken from reality, inspired lovingly from reality, coming from a really respectful, loving place. But paying tribute to those cultures and having folks, that was one of the problems with the thing we don't talk about, which was like it totally, was whitewashed. And I say that as a white woman who did the voice of Korra. I didn't really know much about her when I got it, but so I think that's been really beautiful to see. So that being said, I know that they would want to, for sure, with the Water Tribe, like very much lean into Native American culture, First Nations cultures. So I would want to put someone in who really, can relate to that and can speak to that and can represent that, because that's really, really important to me too. Any of the kind of age wise, I mean, it depends on what age range they would be going for. I'm like obsessed with the show Reservation Dogs. It's my favorite show.
Oh,
So, anybody who has ever been on that show, I'm like, please be in the Water Tribe somewhere. Just be in the Water Tribe somewhere
mhm.
live action, because you're all wonderful. I don't know that they're necessarily like, that gets tricky. It's a whole, I don't need to be speaking for American Indian culture right now, but I know that also that's, you try to honor it and find the right person. But also, we've done a really good job of like getting rid of a lot of cultures. So you have to, there are definitely cases where people are playing tribe members that they're not in that particular tribe. And that's not for me to, say either way, but
But I do think because we have a good adaptation right now of Avatar on Netflix, that's taking us a step closer to getting a Korra series or
yeah, I
film.
mean, that conversation may well be happening, and I agree with you. The cast for the live action, they also just like they clearly just love the show, the original series,
Mhm,
and I've spoken to people on the even just on the crew
mhm.
who are like, I can't believe I get to do this. This is like a pinch me moment, like that, and I think that comes through. You really see the love that has gone into it. So I'm so happy for all of them,
Yeah.
and yeah, I know they're really excited about season 2. So
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to season two. Another thing that came up randomly along with the stuff you should know thing was my boyfriend's a huge fan of Welcome to Night Vale.
oh yeah,
And I found out that you're in that as well. Could you talk a little bit about that experience?
sure. Yeah, I've done a few different things with the Night Vale over the many years. I've had the honor of doing a couple of live shows with them, and I've played little characters here and there through the years. But last year they asked me if I would kind of be like the big bad, so to speak,
Ooh.
which I was extremely excited about. And once again, that's one where, their schedule is my schedule. That was something I just did by myself. So I didn't get to be with
Mm.
folks. But I do know those guys and have loved working with them and wish that I could see more of them. They're sort of everyone's scattered across everywhere, but yeah, I was so honored to get that opportunity, and I really had a blast with it.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, I have only heard the first episode, but I really enjoyed it. And I know my boyfriend David loves it, so I have to get
Yeah.
on that. But very
Well, it's
exciting.
that feeling of like there's so many episodes. Like I totally
Yeah.
understand that like barrier to entry of like how am I gonna ever catch up with it? Yeah.
I did have one more question for you.
Sure.
For people out there who are interested in voice acting and becoming a voice actor, what advice would you give to them?
I mean, number one advice is go to D. Bradley Baker's website. He has a website called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. And he created that because, so many of us would be at conventions and having these conversations. We like to go deep with people who love the stuff we love. And there are definitely often times where folks are like, I do have an acting background and I'm interested in getting into voiceover, or I don't have any acting experience, but I love doing voices. And people come at it from so many different walks of life that D, who it just did this out of the goodness of his heart because he's a wonderful, wonderful human being who's been both very fortunate and is one of the most talented people I've ever met, to have this amazing career. And he was like, I wanted to create a place where we could send folks that really walk them through on their own time, all the different ways you can kind of get into it and what a demo is, and the kinds of classes that we recommend. I always recommend improv to people because I think I think when I think about the most successful VO actors that I'm friends with, they all are so quick and so adaptive and not afraid to try something and fail and then do it differently. And I think improv is a really, really great place to figure that out. That being said, then there's all the kind of technical stuff, but that's kind of what Dee's site is for too. I mean, sometimes like people who have been working for a million years are like, I need Dee's advice on what kind of microphone to get, for my home studio. So it's a really great resource. But I think the other thing that like we all kind of consistently say is like you need to study acting. Like I don't know that there's like a shortcut voice acting thing, and that can be uncomfortable because for those of us who have social anxiety or stage fright, or aren't interested in like seeing ourselves do something, we're more interested in that magical thing I was talking about getting to be a character who doesn't look anything like you. You're not in your body in that sense. It can be hard, but I do think that that is like a necessary skill set to develop so that then you have all of that and then you can just kind of hone it down to what you need for voice acting. But I think Andrea Romano, I think, is probably the one who kind of said that first and best, which is she's always like, well, voice acting is acting and you got to study acting. So, and that's kind of why, again, I go to the improv thing too. It's like, you're in your body in improv and you're in the moment in a way I've never experienced doing anything else. And it actually helps in real life too. Like it helps you in social interactions and thinking on your feet and job interviews and all that kind of stuff. It just like sharpens your mind in a way that I find very exciting.
Oh, that's very good advice. My best friend, Chris Carr, she's actually a voice actor. And when I told her I was interviewing you, I asked her, I was like, do you have any questions for Janet? And she wanted to know if there was anything from the comics that happened that you wish that you could have voiced.
Oh, well, that's a great question. I mean, the graphic novels and the comics are all so special and so beautiful, and the illustration is insane and so wonderful. But I mean, obviously, like the Korra saw me continuing after
Mm.
the end of season 4, it was very, very important to me. And so, in a way, I did get to voice it because we ended up during COVID doing a reading with Seychelle and me, and then PJ and Mindy and David joined us. And it was such a treat. But that's definitely like if that could have been fully animated, that would have been amazing. So we tried to give a little snippet of that by doing this reading that people can still, I think they can still find on YouTube and like they can read along with their comic and kind of hear our voices talking. So,
That's
but that would
awesome.
have been like the priority, I think, for me would be those moments.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so cool. But in the meantime, where can people follow you and keep up with your upcoming projects and everything that like your appearances? I know you're doing a lot of conventions right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the best is Instagram, but I'm very bad. I'm a real post and ghoster. So if you want to actually reach out to me, you can do it through my website. I'm very easy to find. It's just janetvarney.com. But yeah, don't message me on Instagram because I get so many messages and then I get overwhelmed and scared and then they just pile up. So, but I'm very, very good with like direct contact. But yeah, on Instagram, I'm pretty good about posting all my appearances, any new stuff I'm working on, dorky videos. That's probably the best place. I'm on TikTok too, so I should tell people check me out. I think I'm Janet Varney on TikTok, and I've been posting more there, and it's been really fun to kind of play in that world as well. I just posted like a kind of a long video about me repurposing a embroidered dress and turning it into like the embroidering on a jean jacket, which was very fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Janet, thank you so much for taking the time to
Sure.
speak with me. This has been such a treat, and I just really, really appreciate this. And it's so nice to finally get to meet you.
Oh my gosh, right back at you. And
Oh,
I
thank
want
you.
you to know I've been so brave and I've been staring at that face hugger from behind your shoulder this entire time. And it's one of my favorite franchises. And it seriously almost made me pee my pants a couple of times. I was like,
Could you
oh
imagine if it started wiggling its little
my
fingers?
God, I would lose it. I love the world building in those movies, but it's also like truly terrifying.
Oh my
That's why
gosh.
it's so good. But yeah, I'm very brave. No, this was a blast and have fun tonight and
Oh, thank you.
definitely try not to overheat. I need you to take
Yeah,
care of
I'm gonna
yourself.
waterbend,
Perfect.
waterbend my way through the mazes.
That's the way to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a
you
great
got
day.
it. You too.
Bye.